Hey everyone, and happy Friday. Welcome to another episode of the Inkwell Gamers podcast. If you caught our episode last week, we went over the Sapphire Ruby starter deck from Into the Inklands, and today we are going to be going over the other one, the Emerald Amber starter deck. So, without further ado, let's jump in. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm really excited to do this one.
So, first impressions, I know last week you said you liked the other one better, but how did this one fare for you?
I like the other one better, but I thought this one was fun as well, mainly because there are dogs galore, and I love dogs, so that just tickles my heart a little bit, But as far as how the deck played out, the deck's main game plan is to curve out and present a wide battlefield.
Yeah, so
right?
Definitely a little bit more focused than the last one, I feel like.
Yeah, I think so. It has some decent standalone threats, such as Dawn Carnage, which is a character that can kind of just win a game by itself. Remember Goofy from the first set, the Daredevil? That was a 3/4 for 5 that quested for 2 with Evasive, and this is a 4/4, so it's even bigger. So I do kind of like Dawn Carnage as a standalone threat, and it has some other bigger characters like Starkey and Robin Hood, who really aren't that great, but if you get a quest or two in with them, then you're probably in a pretty good position. But the deck's main game plan is to curve out, and a lot of the deck's best draws, they start with Pluto Friendly Pooch. So this is a card I like a lot. It's a 1-cost uninkable character that quests for 1, and he's a 0/2, and has the ability Good Dog, and you can exert it to pay 1 less for the next character you play. So essentially, you can play some really good 3-cost characters on turn 2. One of the better draws for this deck is Pluto into Kit Cloud Kicker, which can return your opponent's 1-drop, so that 1-drop cannot challenge Pluto anymore. Or maybe you can go Pluto into Roly Hungry Puppy, and that allows your Pluto, if it can't produce, the mana or the ink, to actually trade with a character potentially as well. So you still get some use out of it.
Mm-hmm.
So, like I said, it's super important to get up to the... Like, it does want to go wide, but there are some other good standalone threats, like I mentioned, and it's important for Pluto to help you get to those, as well as just shifting out Pluto Determined Defender on turn 4, which I did to you, and that seemed like it was pretty good.
Yup.
Yeah, you didn't...
No, it was pretty it was pretty good.
Yeah, you didn't have one of the 2 Dragon Fires in your deck, so it kind of just took over the game, which was awesome.
Yeah.
This deck also has like a decent amount of card advantage for a go wide deck, between Lucky, the 15th Puppy, being able to draw cards, albeit a little inconsistent in this deck. You have Hypnotize and Improvise that can draw cards. Tinkerbell Generous Fairy draws cards. And Pongo also has the ability to draw cards. So it's possible that you can really grind the opponent out with this deck. If you don't have Pluto Friendly Pooch, I just think its early game is just a little bit worse than the other deck, though. But yeah, it definitely has a lot of card draw and some big characters to help. But I think mulliganing to Pluto is probably the most important thing to do in this deck.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think both Plutos were definitely like the stars of the deck. I liked it more because I felt like I was doing more, I guess, than with the other deck, because we each played a couple games against each other with each, and then we switched, and I felt like when I had this deck in my possession, I was doing more.
It's also more focused, like you said, so that probably helps it.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah, I need like a clear game plan with a deck. And so the fact that this one kind of was a little bit more obvious as to what I would be doing and the progression of the cards that I'd be playing. I also really liked Pongo. I feel like I used his ability a lot. Even though I got really lucky and I got access to him during those games because there's only like 1 copy of him. Mm-hmm. But I just remember that when I got him on the board, I remember triggering his ability several times. And it was really useful, to be honest. I wish there were more in the deck. But
Yeah, they just can't fit that really any other super rares into the deck though.
yeah,
So
I know,
they just give you a little taste of it.
I know. But yeah, I thought he was really useful, and I especially like that his ability, you don't have to exert him to trigger it because obviously he's pretty weak. So it could be one of those cards that you just put out on the board and keep and not do anything with but maybe that ability, and I did do that several times. So I liked that a lot.
Yeah, and the thing about him is that he has enough strength to actually trade with a lot of early characters if you need to as well. So
Yeah.
he has that utility.
Yeah. I feel like the locations for this deck, they really aren't as strong as they were in the other starter deck because they could just be easily removed. So I felt like I played one of them on the first turn, and it was like the very first game ever that we did with it, not realizing how quickly it just went away. I'm like, well, that was useless. So obviously, we've talked about how with locations, you want to try to plan accordingly, where you maybe put it down a couple turns later, where you also would have extra ink to move the characters there. But I didn't know. I was I was none the wiser, and I played it on the first turn, and it was just bye bye. So
It quickly died by like turn 3 and didn't do anything.
yeah,
It's like gained you 2 lore, right?
yeah. So I just felt like they weren't as aggressive either. Like Agrabah in the other starter deck gives you 2 lore, and these don't, and it was just very underwhelming for me.
Yep. Yeah, they seem a little bit more like a distraction from your characters, which is probably not really worth the ink and cost to play the actual cards in your deck or out onto the board. But if it is distracting from your game plan of going wide, that could be useful. But that is all it really was a distraction. Which is kind of sad because there is a sweet location payoff in Peter Pan in this deck, but they did not give it the locations that would make Peter Pan any good.
Yeah.
So that was kind of disappointing. So Dana, why don't you tell us some cards that you thought maybe overperformed or underperformed?
Oh man. So like we kind of touched on before, Shift Pluto is just really hard to get rid of. Kind of one of the stars of the deck. I feel like if you don't have direct removal or enough to get rid of him, it's just really difficult to get him off the board because, I mean, you can't even chip away over multiple turns because he just keeps healing himself. So definitely one of the bigger threats. I also felt like, I know you don't really care for this card, but I felt like Nani was really also annoying to get rid of just because, she's just slightly bigger than Maximus, and I feel like that one extra willpower just, I don't know, it was it made it more difficult than I thought it would be to get her off as well. So she might not be as great and constructed since we are only just using starter decks, but at least if we're comparing starter deck to starter deck matchup, I felt like she was really difficult to get rid of.
Yeah, they gave Nani a big booty.
Big booty. But what did you think?
I liked both Plutos. Like I said, I think Pluto Friendly Pooch is the card you want to see in your opening hand most often. But I also thought Kit Cloud Kicker was pretty good as well. Like I said before, the tempo that you get from it just felt really strong in the early game. Just keep your opponent off balance a little bit while also ensuring that your friendly Pooch can exert 4 more ink throughout the game. So I really like that combo. And another card that I think felt really good was Strike a Good Match. And this is, well, it makes sense because this has been played in a lot of constructed decks as well.
Oh yeah, like the Steeled Emerald decks?
Yeah, the Steel Emerald decks. Basically, any of the Emerald decks have played Strike a Good Match because it just combos so well with Ursula in the sense that you just draw 4, discard 2, and when you sing it, you're not using any ink for that effect. It just, you get such good card selection and card advantage. It just feels really good. So I really like that card. Not the most exciting card, but it is a good one.
Yeah. I feel like going back to Peter Pan, even though there's only one in this deck, I'm a little disappointed that, like, yeah, he has an ability that he gains a lore, but all of the other Peter Pan cards that we have either have evasive or rush. Like, I think the 2 rubies have rush, and then the other two have evasive. And it's like, I'm kind of disappointed that they didn't give him one of that. But I don't know if they thought that his ability would be too strong if they gave him that. But I think because he's only a 3/3, he wouldn't be that much of a scary threat, even if they gave him evasive or rush, but whatever. That one kind of, I think that one was like my underwhelming card.
They could have given him evasive. That way he would have a chance in constructed. I think Tinkerbell, the emerald one that costs 4,
Yep.
I think that card is probably just a better Peter Pan, just a little more consistent with its questing and it's harder to deal with. But if they gave this one evasive, I think this one might have seen some play because we're actually seeing some locations get played through all the colors. So yeah, just getting that extra 2 lore just by having a location play and moving Peter Pan there for that 1 or 2 ink could have been useful. But they just didn't make him strong enough.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if they were scared of him being too good. If locations end up being too good, it's possible. But I mean, Peter Pan's a pretty sweet character. I don't mind if they push him a little bit and make him really strong. They've yet to really do that for him.
Yeah, I agree. But that was just kind of my little sadness.
Your little tangent.
My little tangent there.
It's okay. All right, so what cards did you feel like did not play that well?
Honestly, the Dalmatians, just like the normal kind, just didn't really do it for me. I appreciate the fact that they're trying to push this, especially because you can have more than just 4, but it's just not good enough.
Yeah.
It's sad.
Like, I don't know what they needed to do to make the Dalmatians good, but being a 2/3 with no real ability and no payoff just makes them underwhelming. Like, if they made it like a 2/4, so where the stat was just a little bit bigger, or maybe for each Dalmatian in play you get +1 strength or something, maybe that'd be too good, I don't know. But you need more of a reason to play a bunch of these in your deck other than them just being incredibly cute.
Yeah. Did you already give your underwhelming, or did I miss that? Did I space out?
No, I didn't talk about that yet.
Okay. All right. What's your underwhelming card?
So Tinkerbell, it just felt like a worse Grammatala from the other starter deck. It's uninkable, its body isn't as good. The card selection is generally better because you look at the top 4, but yeah, I just don't like that. It's uninkable mainly. Grammatala just fits in the same curse spot, but if you just really need that ink, that just gives it extra utility. The other card I thought was a little underwhelming was Lucky, and it seemed like you had to get lucky.
Oh.
It seemed like you had to get lucky in order for his ability to be like really good. I think I counted, there was like 15 characters in this deck that you could hit with lucky, which means you're, I don't know, that's 1 in every 4 cards in your deck, so you're 25% chance to hit, I guess, which just doesn't seem like enough. So I thought they could have made him a little bit better, so I didn't really like that.
Do you feel like it was the card itself or the way that the deck was built around it?
Mainly the way the deck was built around it. I don't know if Lucky is good enough to be playable constructed just because he is uninkable as well and his body's not great, but definitely for this starter deck, the deck just wasn't built around it enough. I think you probably want close to 30 or 40 targets, something like that, in order to make it more consistent where you're hitting not only 1, but you can get 2 cards off of it.
Yeah.
And that's where he would really shine with his other ability too.
Yeah.
The other cards I didn't really like were the Flotsam and the Jetsam. They just felt like worse Flotsam and Jetsams from the original set.
Yeah, the amethyst ones.
Yeah, the amethyst ones that have evasive and rush. Those just felt way stronger and way more exciting, especially because one of them was a rare as well. So those were just way more exciting. I think these are just it's a 3-cost 2/2 with ward, which isn't great,
And
you have
support. I feel like those abilities just aren't as impactful either. I mean, I feel like in general, and correct me if I'm wrong, in general, the cards where all they do is like give support aren't really that strong in constructed, and the fact that this is even more narrow where it has to just be like where Flotsams is that it has to be Jetsam that gets this. It just, it sucks, but
yeah, it only works with Jetsam. Now it does work with Jetsam on defense as well. He continuously gets that +3 strength, but still, it's. I mean, maybe if we get to a point where we have all Flotsam and Jetsams and we can play like 20 of each in a deck, then it'd be sweet. But I mean, I don't even think these would be good in that deck. Probably,
probably not. I wonder if they're gonna try to do a pair for every color.
Yeah, probably every couple sets. Yeah, because I mean they're sweet characters, but yeah, these just felt underwhelming. Like it just never is gonna be good.
Yeah. All right, so let me ask you this: because this starter deck has a more clear vision of what the game plan is supposed to be, do you feel like that's how you would kind of continue if you were to upgrade?
Yeah. So. That's a good segue, Dana.
Yeah.
Good segue.
Did you like how I did that?
Yeah, look at that. Yeah, so, and I guess that's what we're going to talk about next is the budget upgrade, which is exactly the direction in which I took this deck to be a low to the ground, curve out, aggressive deck that is trying to put the pressure on your opponent as much as possible.
Mm-hmm. So walk us through that.
All right, so I took out just a ton of cards, because a lot of them aren't that good or specifically good in this style deck. So I took out the Robin Hood, Starkey, Hypnotizes, Improvises, Deville Manor, Neverland, Horus, and then pretty much just every expensive character like Pluto, a lot of the mid-range characters like Rolly and Nani, Cubby, Don Carnage, Peter Pan, Patch, Jetsam, Flotsam, and Tinkerbell. I wanted to go super low to the ground aggro with it and maximize Lucky and Pongo. So I added Lucky and Pongo, went up to 4 on those. And from there I just added a bunch of cheap as in ink cost, but also inexpensive cards that quested for a good amount. So 4 Enchantress, 4 Flynn, the OG that quest for 2, Simba, Protective Cub, added a 4th Pluto, 4 Piglet, 3 more Pongo, 4 Sleepy, 4 of each of the Amber Queens, 4 Ursula Deceiver, 4 Pain, and 3 Panic. And I really like the Pain and Panic in this deck because not only do they combo with each other, Pain also combos with the Queen Commanding Presence, so that's just an extra way to turn it on to make sure you can quest for 3 with that card, which seems pretty good. I lost to that in set 2 before, and I was kind of impressed by it.
Yeah, I'm actually really excited you added Pain and Panic because I feel like they aren't that good in a lot of constructed decks, and so the fact that you were able to make it work in here is pretty exciting for me because I love them so much.
Yeah, they're awesome. They just kind of fit because Panic, I feel like Panic could have been played a little bit more during set 2. We saw Meg get play in set 1, and Panic has a better body. At Quest for 1 more has a better ability, and it works with Pain as well. And like I said, I actually lost to a Pain Panic deck that did the Queen Commanding Presence thing on me, and I just had no answer for it. So
well, clearly it scarred you because
it did
because you remembered enough. Yeah, you remembered it enough to make it in this deck.
Yeah. So, and the one thing that I like, even though that this deck is really aggressive, you do have some card advantage cards in the form of Ursula Deceiver, so you can maybe snipe one of your opponent's more important songs. You have Flynn Rider to make your opponent discard cards, and you have Pongos and Luckies to help find as many characters as you need so you can play the long game as well. So I think it can really apply some pressure to the control decks as well as playing a long game against them too. I think where this deck might struggle is just against other aggro decks, just because Emerald as a color doesn't traditionally play from behind super well.
Yeah. Oh, trust me, I know.
And this is kind of more the same. It doesn't have a lot of recourse for your opponent's aggro draws.
Yeah.
So if you get behind early, and hopefully you don't because you're the one playing Pongos, it could be a tragedy. Mm-hmm. And the other thing that I really like about this deck is that it was only $28 to put together. So, and that's not including some of the cards that you actually get from the deck itself, right? Mm-hmm. So, yeah, very cheap. I think it can win some games incredibly fast if your opponent's not ready for it. So, yeah, I would definitely, if I was on a budget, try this one out for sure.
All right, so let's say you're not necessarily wanting a budget deck and you're like, you know what, money is no option. I'm just kidding. But if you weren't trying to keep it really cheap, how would you upgrade this normally?
So yeah, I think the natural progression could be going from the starter deck to the budget option we talked about, and then, you know, if you come into a little bit more money, you want to spend a little bit more, you're getting a little more competitive, then we have this option. It's a very similar deck, so very aggressive, very assertive, just not necessarily budget, right? So we have 4 Kitas, 4 Lilo Making a Wish, 4 Plutos, 4 Stitch New Dogs, 4 the Queens, 4 Curse Merfolks. Now, those are all 1-cost cards. Notice that we have 24 of them. That is a ton. That is going to give you a lot of consistency in your powerful early plays. Then we have 2-cost cards in Piglet, 4 Simbas, 4 Flynn's, 4 Morphs, and 2 Ursula Deceivers. So what this deck's going to be really good at doing is playing a Pluto on turn 1 into a 2-cost and 1-cost card on turn 2, or just 2 more or 3 more 1-cost cards on turn 2. So you're going very wide, very fast, which is something I really like about it. Then we have the 3-drop slot, which is essentially just 4 Pongos. We have the 4-drop slot, which is 3 Luckies, because when you have this many low to the ground characters, you're able to draw a bunch of cards off Lucky, but you're also able to convert those cards into extra lore very quickly with Lucky. And then we have some of the shift cards. We have 4 Kitas, 3 Queens, and 4 Stitch Rockstars. Stitch is obviously an incredible card, and when you have as many cards that cost 2 or less, you're just going to be able to draw as many cards as you have ink for.
Yeah, you got to reap the benefits of that card.
Yeah, and I think Kita is especially good in this deck because you have so many little characters that don't fight in combat very well, that giving your opponents -3 strength is going to protect them for that extra turn, so you just have that much more staying power.
Yeah.
Where this deck really loses to is a lot of the steel decks that are running around,
Yeah.
I think. Grab Your Swords is probably this deck's worst enemy. But I think against a lot of the decks that aren't Grab Your Swords, this can do some pretty sweet stuff.
Yeah, I was going to say it definitely could be a little threatened by the steel, but other than that, I can see how it could get out of control pretty quickly for your opponent, and I like it.
Yeah, so, I mean, it only has, I shouldn't say only, it has 16 uninkables, but a lot of those are just cheap 1-cost characters, and your curve's not that high anyway. You should be able to draw plenty of cards, so you really shouldn't have an issue with uninkables. The one card that I probably would try to fit in is the Bare Necessities, just as an extra tool to disrupt, the steel decks when they're playing Grab Your Swords. Hopefully this deck would be good enough at getting under Be Prepared that you wouldn't have to worry about that too much, but like I said, steel's going to be the issue. But I also think this deck can pressure steel quite a bit through Stitch Rockstar. The only card that they have that can really deal with that is Along Came Zeus, which is a really strong card, but I think just having so many characters that quest for 2 and having some thicker characters like Stitch and Kita can really make up the ground there.
Yeah. And even if you don't have the bare necessities, you at least have the 2-drop Ursula. So if they do have Grab Your Sword in their hands, you can try to get rid of that quickly too. So you at least have that as a fail-safe in a way.
Yeah, and I might even go up on her as well, just as that extra insurance, because I think that is probably the one deck you're weak against. That is also a deck I do like Lucky against, because its 3 willpower doesn't get taken out by Grab Your Swords, and it provides the card advantage you need to keep up with that. So yeah, I think this deck has some gameplay even against that if you can play pretty tightly.
Mm-hmm. So what's the dollar amount?
So this one comes in right around $130.
Which isn't, honestly, for a TCG deck, that is hella cheap.
That is hella cheap. Like a playset of Ursula from the new set, that card is more than $130 for a playset. So it's like...
Like the Deceiver of all, you mean?
Yeah.
Because obviously this one is cheap in here, but yeah.
Yeah, or, Beast... Tragic Hero, that's like $35. That's $140. So yeah, I think this is a deck that if you're in a metagame where your opponent's not playing Steel, maybe at your local game store, or you just don't think Steel is that good currently, which it is, but maybe at some point it won't be, or it won't be as popular. This is a deck I could definitely see bringing just to try to be as fast as possible and, getting the match over very quickly.
Mm-hmm. I like it. Maybe I kind of want to put it together and just try it out at League this weekend.
Well, it kind of scares me, so I'd prefer it if you didn't play it against me. Oh, we could do that, though.
Like, don't let that stop you, jeez. Thought you wouldn't be scared to the challenge.
Nah, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, no, I like it a lot. I played against a different deck at this Winnabox event that we went to. It was not playing these colors, but it had the same game plan. Play a bunch of low to the ground, aggressive players, and it just it went so quick. And it was over before I could even blink. And I feel like this deck is definitely going to do that as well, is get completely out of control, and before your opponent even has time to react, then you're already pretty much running away with it.
Yeah, I wonder if Milo, instead of maybe the queens or one of the shift characters, if Milo could be good, the shift line there, but that's why we test play, right?
Yeah, for sure.
We'll have to see, but yeah, I definitely think there's something to this deck. I might run it some games on Pixelborn just to see.
So you can play it, but you just won't let me play it because I'll be playing against you.
Yes.
That's 100%. Well, if you guys want a second look at these 2 deck lists, I'll post the links to our Dreamborn in the description of this episode so you guys can check it out on your own. If you test it out and you have any feedback, let us know how it played out for you. But do you have anything before I wrap up?
No, I just love doing the set reviews because I just love brewing decks that I normally wouldn't.
Yeah. I don't know if I should say this on the podcast, but I feel like you come home every day from work and you're like, I built a couple decks today at work. I'm like, shouldn't you be working?
Yes, and I still do that, yes. Both of those are true.
I'm just teasing. But yeah, I know. I know you enjoy doing these. All right, cool. Well, we will wrap it up from here. We hope you guys enjoy this episode. Thank you for joining us this week. And we look forward to talking with you all next week. So have a great weekend.
Have a great weekend, everybody.